easily accessible way and give more examples on how to achieve that as well. And this webinar, the intention of this webinar is to do the same. So this model perspectives is essentially defining MDG technologies and security groups and workspaces and patterns that we've all been doing for a very long time. But there was always multiple steps that we need to do to stitch them together. So this attempt in EA 17 is to make them more model driven, like so that you could see what you are designing, we could see whom you're assigning it to, and that's kind of what Scott demonstrated. And the other aspect that we've been working on is to define accelerators. So there is support for Archimate and BPMN and TOGAF and whatnot, but what we have seen repeatedly working with users is they are focusing on specific use cases, architecture use cases, for example, could be application architecture, like application portfolio management or business capability management. So they have specific use cases that they are focusing on. And to simplify that, we have defined what we call accelerators, and that's also pre-packaged in EA 17. So what I'm going to do in this part of the webinar is to show you how this architecture platform, which comprises of EA, ProLaborate, and Pro Cloud Server, can be used most effectively using these accelerators. We all know Enterprise Architect kind of supports a whole raft of frameworks. It could be used for software designing, systems engineering, process modeling, and whatnot. That's its strength, but it's also at times overwhelming for people, because when people start with this out of the box, it could be way more than what they would expect to achieve their use cases. And to simplify this, we have always given a process or an approach of how to achieve it. So we always trying to advocate to start with the use cases that you want to achieve, and then developing a meta model around it, and then configuring EA to support that meta model. This EA configuration, we've been doing this for many years, but that's always been a bit of a challenge. So if people who are already using EA, so I could see a lot of people who are expert EA users in this forum, you would have done MDG technology starting from defining Excel CSVs for quick linkers. So there's been a long transition or transformation in the way things have been done in EA. Now it's all been simplified, and this model perspective is just one more step closer to helping us achieve this EA configuration part. And essentially, it's the MDG technologies and role-specific perspectives. So MDG technologies, as we all know, it's essentially defining the toolboxes, the diagrams, the quick linkers that is expected to be used by people, as opposed to using the entire toolbox. And we are also looking at giving them patterns and templates that are essential for them to get started. So it's all about letting people get started in the most seamless way. And the second objective of this model perspective is to have role-specific views. So we could have menus and toolboxes and diagrams and technologies for that matter. So if we go to the list of MDG technologies that Enterprise Architect supports, there's going to be a really long list of tech. Not everything is going to be used by everyone, but to also ask people to go enable and disable it themselves, that's also an overhead. But what these role-specific perspectives will allow us to do is to let them exactly work on the perspective or the framework or the MDG technology that we want them to work on. So that's pretty much what we're expecting users to achieve using these model perspectives. And just in the context of application portfolio management, so one of the accelerators that we have is for application portfolio management use case. And people may wonder, why shouldn't I just use Archimate? There's Archimate full support, and we could just use that for APM. And it's absolutely it's definitely possible to use Archimate for APM, and that's what we are using as well. But more often than not, the whole Archimate offers much more than a specific use case related artifacts. So expecting everyone to be trained in Archimate and to be able to understand its nuances, its connectors, the objects that needs to be selected in the right context is a significant task. And it's not just me. I was just looking at public discussions, and there's like hours and hours of discussions on whether something should be a function versus a service or a capability. And this discussion is a never-ending thing. I'm sure most of us would have sat in meetings where this has been discussed again and again. And that is kind of the overheads that we want to reduce for the wider team. So if the core architecture team is going to have this discussion, that makes a lot of sense. But if everyone is going to have this discussion and they're going to use their discussion to choose whatever connectors or objects has to be used in a particular context, that makes architecture adoption quite a bit of a challenge. It's at least our perspective, our view on it. And to do that, one way we have seen EA practices succeed is to make it simpler. Many people saying like dumbing it down or decluttering it, whatever you call it. It's essentially keeping it simple and focusing on the use cases. And that's exactly what we have tried to achieve using the accelerators as well. And all we are trying to say is Archimate. For example, I'm using Archimate in this context. This applies to any other framework that we are using. But just between a business actor and an application component, there could be like 7 different types of connectors that we could use. But people rather would want one type of connector that aligns with what my expectations are. And how do I get my expectations? It's essentially by defining my use cases. So if I understand what my use cases are, and then if I also have a view of what my objective, like end result is. So if I want to show certain dashboards, certain results, certain insights to my end users, and then work along with my use cases, then are we able to define a meta model, which is a subset of Archimate or any other framework that you're using, like that's supported in EA, but just use a small subset, which is going to be relevant to achieve our intended use cases. And that's the context. And based on this is what we have defined the accelerator. So an accelerator is nothing but a well-defined meta model based on industry experience and the use cases that we have always come across, and all the necessary EA configuration based on that meta model. This includes the MDG technologies, the perspectives, the menus, the quick linkers, the diagram templates, patterns, toolboxes, whatever that you could imagine is all kind of pre-packaged. There's also additional steps that we have packaged in it, which includes if you want to load a set of applications or data objects from your Excel spreadsheet or an external system, you have predefined data loading utilities that will allow you to harvest those external data into EAS models as well. So pretty much to go from an Excel spreadsheet to a model and even have all the dashboards ready is what we have achieved using an accelerator. This is pretty much to give a team a head start. Now, what I'm going to show is how I'm going to use these APM or these accelerators that's pre-packaged in Enterprise Architect 17. So here I've got Enterprise Architect 17. I've got an empty model, which has got pretty much I'll even clear this is an empty model where I've just defined one user group. And what we are going to see here is whatever Scott showed as predefined as model perspectives and how to assign security groups to a specific role and how to assign that role to a specific menu. All those have been predefined for you, and it's available out of the box. So if you look at all the available perspectives, one of them is called the TEA, and TEA essentially stands for the essential architecture. So what we believe is this is a subset that people could start with, and they could always extend it to the wider use cases. So we're not saying this is it. This is just a start, and this is a subset to make it easier for people to get started. So everything from scratch is given in a platter. So if I just go, I want to get started with my APM Accelerator technology, I just go and create a model. And this, I would request people who have already been using EA to kind of pay attention here, because there's been certain tasks which I myself believe was fairly challenging in the past, especially if I want to define an MDG technology and convert it into an XML file. There were a number of steps that we need to do. We need to export them as a profile. There should be diagram profile, toolbox profiles, tags, and whatnot. And then we need to assemble them all together in a separate file and then distribute it. All these steps have been removed, or like, made redundant. We can still do it, but what Spark Systems has done is, in this accelerator technology, what's included is an MDG technology that caters to the use case that I just spoke about. So it's kind of working on the meta model that I just spoke. So this is a meta model which has tags, which has quick linkers, which has templates, patterns. So this is the meta model that we have taken as a background. And for that, there is a full-fledged MDG being defined. I'm not going to get into the details of how an MDG is defined, but what I'm going to show you though is, if I click on this MDG technology, and in the past, to compile this into a distributable file, we need to go through a series of steps. So I need to export each of these as profiles and assemble, as I said. But what I'm going to do now is, there is this import package as MDG technology. This is like in one click. What this will do is, this will take care of all these background steps that is required, and assemble all these together and add this MDG, the final APM MDG, and load it to the model. So it's pretty much seamless. So all the steps that we used to do, like to export and compile an MDG, is all being taken care of with this single function. So this is essentially added the MDG technology to this model. So if I just go to specialize and manage MDG technology, now you'll see application portfolio management, which is the result of this whole package, and all the definitions has already been added to this model. And as you can see, I've already disabled most of the things that, most of the text that I'm not going to be using here. But still, there is a fair bit of menus and complexity that I need to work around. But what we are going to do in the next couple of steps will simplify that even more. So this is the MDG technology, which I just loaded with just a single click. And the next thing is the perspectives, like especially the roles and security groups that Scott was demonstrating. In this predefined template for APM, what we have done is, we kind of shortlisted the menus that we expect to be used by an architect. So, there's going to be developing and simulations and various other things, which we do not see as an immediate use case for an application architect or like an architect. So we have chosen a small ribbon set, and we've also said, okay, for an application architect, all we need is the APM profile or the APM technology that we just enabled. So what I'm going to do is, this is the security group. The only thing that you may want to do, you may have to do is, you would have a set of user groups defined in your system. So if I go to, each model is different. So you will have a set of user groups defined. So you may have various roles defined here. You need to do a mapping. So this model says, for application architects, this is the technology, this is the ribbon. And then what I'm going to say is, I just have to assign one of my security groups to this model. So I'm just assigning a model security group to this diagram, and that kind of takes care of it. So from there, I choose this perspective, and then all I need to do is go and publish this perspective. So if I say specialize and publish this perspective, you could see that the APM modeling perspective is already visible, and I'm going to activate it. So when I say activate this perspective, it kind of gives me like the rules that I've defined for the menus and ribbons and technologies and eliminating all the noise, like cutting down all the noise, has all been applied, because I mean whatever I've defined is now applied, and it's also applied to a specific role as well. So now you could see all the menus here, and if I go and try to add a new diagram, you could see that there's going to be quite a number of tech being shown as an admin. Like I'm kind of seeing all these. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just in the same model, I'm going to log in as architect. So I've got a user who is essentially assigned to the application architect group. And what you will see here is the moment I log in, so I didn't do anything, I just logged in. You could see the menu set is already narrowed down. So there's only the things that we wanted them to see. And then the perspective is automatically applied, APM modeling, which pretty much eliminate any other text. So if I go and add my first package, and that user, all he or she is going to see is the thing that we have provision for them. So it's only the APM tech and the APM diagram. So what you could see as a difference between just two different users accessing the same model. So when I log in as admin, the whole raft of things is shown to me, the whole menu set is shown. That's normal for an expert EA user. But for someone new, we need to kind of handhold them, or like give them something that's very easy to start with, and that's exactly what we have achieved with these perspectives. So now you could see for this user, he or she only gets to see the diagram types and the toolboxes that is specifically assigned to them. And in this toolbox, so everything from here is something that you already know. So this is a toolbox that pretty much reflects this like a meta model, any meta model, but in this case it's reflecting this meta model, and that kind of reduces the option. So there's a lot of inbuilt governance. So model validation is something that people always focus on. Like they try to achieve model validation in multiple ways. What we have seen is the toolboxes and proper quick linker definitions also is a very easy way or a straightforward way to achieve it. So I'm just creating a few artifacts from this toolbox. And as you could see, this is all Archimate based, but it's just been renamed or aliased into something that is more relevant to my meta model. And what I'm going to show here is if I try to draw something between an application and let's say a domain, it will simply not allow me to do it, because as per my meta model, it could only go through a subdomain. So you are implicitly enabling this validation. So that's what this accelerator does. So I could only go through a subdomain, and only a subdomain could be connected to a domain. So it's pretty much like implicitly enforcing or validating rules. So if I try to draw connectors, for example, I try to connect an application to organization, the direction is right, but then I don't want my users to be bothered about direction. So I'm going to draw from application to stakeholder, and you could see the direction is automatically reversed. So these are very small, trivial things on an outset, but this is where the model's consistency and quality this is what the quality of the model depends on. To have the right type of connectors, to have the right type of objects, right directions, using the right tag values so that we could have the insights from it as well. All these are part of an MDG definition, as you may know. All in this webinar, what we are trying to demonstrate is to be able to define an MDG technology and convert it into something that we want to share to the users has been made really, really easy, like simplified. It's been really simplified, and even enabling a specific framework or a specific way of working for a specific group is also being simplified. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show as a addition to what Scott demonstrated. So Scott was pretty much going in detail on how to define these. But what we encourage is you are also given access to a whole raft of. So as an application architect, pretty much everything for me is restricted. So I don't see anything else. So I go back to the same model and log in as admin. So this is another question we get asked. So are we disabling everything? Are we losing those capabilities? Absolutely not. It's just there. It's been hidden so that it's not overtly complicating to the users. So as an admin, I get access to all these, and I have these predefined templates or accelerators and many other templates being pre-packaged in EA 17. So this is just an example where I used APM Accelerator technology. But then there is BCM, there's technology portfolio management, and there's various other accelerators that's been included as well that we believe would make it a lot more easier for teams to get started. That's pretty much what I want to show, Scott.
Thank you very much, Nizam. I think that was great to show how powerful you can get with Enterprise Architect 17. So I kind of showed the nuts and bolts of how to set it up from scratch, and then you showed how some of the accelerators then take that an extra step further, giving control over everything from the quick linkers to the meta model and much more. So that's great. I might just jump into the questions. The really good thing is that the first question was, could this work with Archimate? And almost psychically, you gave an example that showed how it certainly can work with Archimate. The second question from Peter said, did technologies have to be selected individually, or is there a way to create technology groups? And that's why I demonstrated and showed that you can use a model builder to bring in a whole lot of technologies and simply drag and drop those so that you don't have to do it individually and you can save time. Can something similar be done to tailor the toolbox? So perhaps, Nizam, you can talk about how some of the MDG technologies can tailor a given toolbox.
Absolutely. My screen is still visible?
Yes, I can still see your screen. Yes.
Yeah, so tailoring the toolbox, I guess that's that's part of defining an MDG as well. So if I look at this diagram, there is a diagram type and a toolbox that this accelerator enabled, and this is pretty much reflecting this meta model. So I kind of emphasize a lot on meta models because this is where we apply a lot of thoughts on, like translating a use case to this. And if you just look at this is picking artifacts from the Archimate business layer, Archimate application layer, and Archimate motivation layer as well. So there's like artifacts from different layers of Archimate stitched into one toolbox, and this toolbox is tied to a diagram type as part of the design in EA. So you could have multiple diagram types and multiple toolboxes, and each toolbox could cater to a specific set of artifacts. And when we say tailoring the toolbox, so though this looks this is pretty much an extension of an Archimate application component, what it also adds is the tags that we would intend to capture. So these are, for example, some metadata that we want to capture. So it's not just about getting an object, as you know. It's also about understanding which, sorry, I think I've taken that slide off, but there's all the attributes that we need to model against an application or a business service or a capability. We could actually have all those pre-packaged in the toolbox. So if I drag and drop something from this toolbox, it creates an object, and it also adds all the tags or the attributes that we expect to capture on that particular artifact. and it also includes the rules that goes with it. So pretty much a tailored toolbox is, in my opinion, a recommendation to start with.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to thank our audience for attending. I'd like to thank you, Nizam, for the detailed explanation as far as how some of the accelerators have been used for things such as application portfolio management and how powerful this tool is. And I hope people have found it interesting and engaging, and look forward to seeing you all again soon for some future webinars. And if people want to learn more about the accelerators or collaborate, how might they be able to get in contact with you, Nizam?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So with that, take care. Thank you very much for attending, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.